Aboriginal Canadians have been here for thousands of years. The white Europeans came here, I guess, about 400 years ago almost. I'm not hearing that things are getting fabulously better, so where does your optimism
I
come
don't
from?
know if you caught it, but I modified it from optimistic to hopeful.
Hopeful, okay. All right. Where does the hope come from?
The hope comes from the fact that the Aboriginal people are not taking this laying down, and there are a lot of non-Aboriginal people that also are quite unhappy with racism and the victimization of people. So between the two, I'm hopeful that this will be overcome. And the other thing that I keep emphasizing when I talk to people is that the future of Thunder Bay is with the Aboriginal people, because the non-Aboriginal population is getting older, and the Aboriginal community is the future of Thunder Bay. It's younger, it's got lots of talent, and I think we just have to open our eyes and recognize what our future is and welcome it.
One of the things I want to just talk about is the fact that, you know, growing up here in Thunder Bay, I was raised here since the age of 4. Being raised or growing up in Thunder Bay, it's, we've had a lack of education right from the get-go.
Who's we?
The entire society of Canada, to be honest with you. The education system was always one-sided. And so when I talk about the Walk a Mile film and we're out presenting it to community members, to community groups, to our own city employees, people are now starting to rethink what the history was and starting to develop a better understanding. The film is an opportunity to give people a chance to reflect on what was missing in our history books in high school, in grade school, give people an understanding to see what was missing there and start to learn and want to learn more about what our history was as Aboriginal people.
Do you think if we knew the history better, that the next time Michelle goes into the Shoppers Drug Mart and shows her status card, maybe the clerk behind the cash register doesn't roll her eyes? Is that possible?
I believe it is. I believe it is possible. I also believe it is possible that, when our children are walking down the street, I have adult children, I have grandchildren as well, and I'm positive that we are going to make some progressive change in our community of Thunder Bay, so that when they are walking down the street and they're young teenagers, that they're not feeling what we felt growing up in Thunder Bay.
I think one of the solutions is you have to start in the schools early age. There's been some programs that have been tried in the past, such as Brown Eye, Blue Eye, and there's a liaison program between some hardcore people on both sides of the issue. And I think you have to get the parents in there too with the children as part of that program, and try and get to the people that are hanging out on social media, getting a lot of their information from there, and just don't want to get involved in any type of really detailed discussion.
To be honest, I think what needs to happen moving forward as a Native solution across Canada, we need to work on the education system, we need to work on the funding and whatnot. We need to acknowledge that there's shortfalls, if that be. But by the same token, we need to acknowledge where things have gone wrong within the Native community themselves. I agree that through the Native residential school system and whatnot, that horrible things happened, deplorable, and people have been affected by that. And we need to now need to look at how to move forward from those things and what's the best way to integrate and re-educate the Native populations to be happy with themselves, to be capable of living in the city of Thunder Bay as a whole. And Canada as a whole, and that's part. Education is definitely part of that. Information is definitely part of that. I think a lot of what happens in Thunder Bay is that people speak to their friend who thinks he knows what happened, or he thinks he knows, he, she, whatever, they think they know the answer, and nobody really gets the true answers of what's happening out there.
I hear a lot about the symptoms of the disease that we face in this territory and frankly all over Ontario. The lack of educational success or school success, youth suicide, the unbelievable rates of Aboriginal incarceration in this territory. 90% of the female incarcerated population here in Thunder Bay are Aboriginal women, and the same goes true in Kenora, in provincial incarceration. It is systemic. You know, until we start saying to ourselves, what we deal with are systemic inequities in this country that have been built and created over hundreds of years, well, at least from 1867 and the birth of this nation, until we start saying it's no longer acceptable, and that politicians at every level have to start building consequences and stating that these are no longer acceptable and we will make the changes necessary. And it has to come from both ends. It has to come from the political leadership, but it also has to come from the community.
Racism it's well and striving in Thunder Bay, and we have to address it. We can look for all the excuses we want. It's not going to stop it, except if we take ownership for our behavior and become leaders without title and start saying to people, it's wrong, stop. Because I say to people, if you keep quiet when you hear somebody saying a racist remark, you're part of that group.
The Walk a Mile series, and I said it here the night that I watched it, was the best history lesson that I've had in my 50 years. I didn't learn about First Nations people in elementary school, in high school, in college, or university, or in my workplace. So it was a great, great starting point for me. In my work with suicide, I've had the great fortune of working with First Nations youth over the last couple of years, and one thing I learned that was really, really significant for me was that the life that my two sons, who are 18 and 16, the life that they live is far, far different from 18 and 16-year-old First Nation boys, young men in this community. Completely different, and for their parents as well. My question is, as a white person in this community, what can I do about discrimination? What can I do?
Great question. Michelle, give him some help.
Well, I mean, I don't have all of the answers, for sure. Part of this for myself with doing Walk a Mile and the work that I do is really just wanting violence to stop, specifically to all people, but to Aboriginal women and young people and children. And that violence can take different forms. And that's where I come from. That's why I do the work that I do. And I think that in order for that to stop, that we need to start to have discussions. You know, we need to start to get honest. We need to start to be vulnerable and truthful and hear two sides, you know, of the story, which is often, you know, obviously our side is left out, and it's been left out of the curriculum and educational institutions, from, you know, wee small children all the way up to post-secondary. Like, you know, Scott had just said himself that he never learned that in school, right? So so there's things like that I'd like to see. I think that us and yourself as a white male is standing up and you know, starting to use your voice alongside of us, right? And demanding and starting to demand for equality, really, for all peoples, but for First Peoples in this country. And what does that mean?
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.